Thank you so much for joining the Playroom today, Jenna.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm thinking about, how we met and how we're still continuing to add value to the community. I'm so excited for people to know more about you. So you being here on the podcast, and also thank you so much for allowing me to be on your podcast as well. It was such a beautiful experience. I learned so much from you, and I was able to add value, and I really appreciated the opportunity.
Yeah, I loved having you. A lot of my people that I usually have are local, so it's nice to now be able to expand beyond just my local community, and especially to talk about Pinterest, which I think is a great topic. And it's something that it's funny because I've been on Pinterest longer than Instagram, but yet, there's all these new platforms that I'm spending more time on. So it's really nice to go back to the platform that I feel like I started on, which was great.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I feel like being on a platform that actually offers value is such a good thing, because now you're giving people an incentive to actually connect with you and stay connected, because social media can be such a hard thing if you actually think about it.
It is. I mean, I always say, people always think it's an easy job. I think that's somewhat of a stereotype, is because all you have to do is post a picture. But I'm like, there's so much to it that people don't understand if they don't do it. Is just because you post something doesn't mean it's going to do well, or
right.
It's going to bring you any leads, or it's going to do anything. And it's a lot of psychology, design, copywriting, strategy, sales funnels. That's all the stuff that I geek out on. And it's stuff that I didn't realize I had such a passion for when I first started in marketing. I just loved doing videos. And over the years, I've learned all the other sides of marketing that I just love just as much. And so my whole, content plan has shifted over the years, because I've realized the power of so many different tools now that are available that weren't available when I first started in 2014.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I believe that too. When you think about creating value and being consistent, that's really about social media. Because back in the day, social media used to be, oh, I'm eating some eggs and pancakes, can you come and see what I'm looking at? But now it's like, I got to think about my copy. I have to think about, is the lighting good? I have to think about, is a caption or call to action necessary? So some people don't even think about this basic thing. So as a content creator and as someone who's coaching clients, and teaching them through online programs and classes, how do you tell them that it's okay to start somewhere?
Yeah, that's so true. And I think you're right. I always say that bad content is worse than no content sometimes, right? Because it's you're putting stuff out, but it's people are inundated with ads. People are inundated with content nowadays that you need to be able to stand out. Otherwise, people might be turned away from your brand. So it's I think some people are scared to say anything, but as long as you have some sort of goal behind it, or some sort of reason for that post to exist, then post it. And I think it is a trial and error kind of thing. I'm still trial and erroring it after 5 years, every time I post something, if it's new, I don't know how well it's going to do. You can't tell in advance. You can kind of guess, but you can't always, know what's going to happen unless you obviously pay for an ad, which can kind of get you more exact results that you need. But if it's organic, you have no idea what's going to take off and what's not. This is so true on Pinterest. This is true on TikTok. This is true on Instagram. Sometimes it's just guessing. And I think that, the more different things that you try, you'll kind of start to see patterns. So my biggest recommendation for anyone that's starting out is try some different things. See what people sort of gravitate to, and then do more of that. And that's kind of how I've learned that on my largest account, which is my Twin Cities Collective Instagram. People love quotes. People love quotes from me. And then I was talking last week with a friend of mine who, she has a personal account, and people love photos of her. So it depends on the account, what type of content is going to do better than something else. So I think it's all about playing around. It's all about trying new things. And some people just aren't willing to do that, and they just stick to what they know. And I don't think it helps them at all.
I think there's also a problem with imposter syndrome. Don't you think so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's confidence too. It's more of oh, I'm afraid to say what I want to say, and a fear of judgment, So it's figuring out, okay, sometimes you have to just put on the marketing hat and be this isn't about me. this is about my business. If you're doing social media for business, like there's sometimes you just have to promote something.
Yeah.
Even if you're like, it's like, oh, I don't want to be salesy, but at the same time, it's like you're using social media hopefully to promote something, and you shouldn't have to apologize for that. You shouldn't have to apologize for trying to make your business grow. And I think, at least especially for women, I think it's harder to just be like, here's me. We're kind of told to be quiet and not, make noise. And I think social media allows us to be a little bit louder. And I think that it's taken women, especially a lot of women, like years and years to become comfortable even doing that. So I do think there is that imposter syndrome. I think that there's a lack of confidence. And I think it's just about mindset, right? It's about figuring out, okay, well, what do I have to give? But then also, what do I have to ask people for? Because if you just give everything away for free, which I did for the first couple of years of my business, I just did everything for free. Like I just did it, like I didn't value myself. And I knew that I had value, but I didn't think others would pay for it, right? I thought, and I think is a concept in the operation world that people expect things for free too. But at the same time, it's like, well, we need to get paid at some point.
Right.
So now, like, I don't ever do a workshop for free. I was just talking with a coaching client of mine, and she's doing all these free classes as a lead gen. And I'm like, no, you should be charging. Even if it's $10, $15, you have spent the time making that content. You can do another way to get lead gen, but like if you're actually doing like really long workshops, I don't see why those should be free, because then the people don't value it either, right? If they pay attention. And so I think it's all about building the confidence to be able to sell whatever you are an expert at. And I think that's something that our creator society is still learning and figuring out.
That's a strong point you mentioned, because now that you're talking about workshops, I have a workshop today with the Pinterest and SEO Marketing Club on Clubhouse. And the members signed up as early as Monday. And I didn't do any ads. I didn't want to run anything because I don't want to be that person that's being on the salesy side. I really want to help people, but I want them to genuinely do that. So you just mentioned pricing. And for me, workshops, I've never really charged for a workshop. I've not even done a workshop. I mean, I have as a webinar, but I've not done it the way I'm about to do it now. And which is, I think, is a better model structure for me, because I can give more of my time to more people at the same time, so that I can actually save time and do things for other people at my own time. So when you mention payments, now I'm doing this for free and it's my first one, but I know at some point I'm going to monetize it because it's going to get more specific and more in depth. So how do you scale from free, and when do you know when to switch?
It's so funny because when I did my first workshop, which was in person, which was in 2018, I believe, it was January 2018, I knew I said, I'm never going to start with free. But that's just me. I just said, so I charged $10 and it sold out in 24 hours. So like I had been building my name up. I had been building who I was, and that for like a year and a half before that. So it's not like I started like a business and I'm like, I'm going to charge right away. I obviously had to build up my credibility. But I don't know why, but I was just like, if I start free, people are going to always expect it to be free. That was my thought, is like, I know there's value here. And I know that like eventually I want to make this like a business, which is selling content, really selling information. I mean, if you think about like online courses, like none of those are free, So it's like, Why should my live class be free too? And I know that a lot of people do them to develop leads. That's why I do webinars, because I have a free webinar, but it's pre-recorded and I can have it available for 6 months. So my recommendation to you is have a free class that you have available, and just have it available always. And that way people can still get the free content. They'll learn more about you. They'll see you on video, but you don't have to spend the time to do these classes live, right? So that's what I've learned, is that I have this opportunity to send them to my free class. They can see if they like me as a speaker, if they like me as a teacher. It gets them onto my email list, and then I promote my live classes that I charge $40 for. So they're $40 a class, and I usually get about 20 to 30 people that sign up for them. So it's like I'm making money. I'm actually putting a lot of effort, spending hours making these slideshows and making these presentations, and I'm like, I think that should be something that you are paid for, because if you're doing all this work for free, obviously a lot of them are used for like, obviously, to promote coaching and stuff, but I'm like, I still don't understand why people Like, especially for me, I've been doing this for 3 years. Like, if I did all of that workshops I've done in the past for free, I would be, broke, So it's like, I think at some point, and for me, I do them a lot. I do them like once a month. So for me, I'm doing like a full length workshop for a lot of things. So I don't know. It's like, and that's the thing is like, there's this concept of free versus paid. And I did a whole episode of my podcast about that, because I think there is, some people just don't ever want to pay for anything. That's
right.
Just some people. There's a lot of free YouTube content, but it's like, people sometimes, if they pay for it, it's a psychology thing, right? That they're like, I paid for this, so I'm actually going to pay attention to it. And so if you go on YouTube, you can tune out after 2 minutes. You're like, oh, this is just a free video, it's always there. But I think what I've learned is people want to be able to ask questions. They want to be able to, reach out to you afterwards. So I don't know, that's just my idea of like why you should pay or why you should charge for things. And that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people differ in that, but that's just what I found helps me the most.
You're really making me rethink my practice right now. Because I've really thought about workshops and I'm like, yeah, people want to get this information, but you make a lot of sense when you say people pay and pay attention. And let me put it like this. The people pay attention to what they pay for.
Yeah, they do. And I have on-demand classes as well. So I have like courses. I mean, I call them classes, but it's because they're short. They're, my classes that I sell are under 2 hours. And some of the courses out there take you 10 to 15 hours to finish. And you know what? There's like a statistic that's like 38% of people, I don't know if that's the right number, like finish courses. Like a lot of people don't finish them because they're so long. And like they just need the basic information. And that's why my classes are really like centered around like, what do you actually need to know? And can you learn it in an hour? So that's kind of like my thought is like, I'm going to teach you like the essentials of, you can get into the weeds if you want to, but I'm like, okay, say you're starting an Instagram and like you have a business and you want to start an Instagram, like what do you need to know? And so I walk through all the things that you need to know. I talk stories, I talk reels, I talk IGTV, I talk all the things you need to know. And the class takes maybe like 2 to 3 hours max. And It's like, I think, and again, like obviously I'm probably leaving some stuff out, but like, is it important? Mm-hmm. Or is it more, again, just like other strategies that you can do? I'm really just focused on what I found works best and can be more universal. Because that's the other thing too I struggle with is who's my audience? For example, my next workshop is on video editing. And I'm a little nervous because I'm like, I don't know what level people are at. Some people may have never opened iMovie before. Some people have already used it before and kind of know a little bit about it. So it's like figuring out, okay, so if you do put on a workshop, I think making it clear who your audience is going to be really helpful for how your marketing for the class works, how your language works. All that is really important to know.
I would say this too. When you think about the pricing now, because you said $10 and then you said $15 and then you said $40. Now, is there a cap I know people charge crazy masterclass for thousands, but like something that is reasonable that if you do it today and people pay that $40, they know that they're leaving with something? Or is it the $100 that they'll pay for a month? That's a challenge. Where do you actually price your points compared to the courses that you offer?
It's so hard. I'll be honest, I'm not a pricing expert. And I was charging $25 until recently. And and then I talked to someone, she's like, you're charging way too little. And I'm like, oh. So I've upped it to 40, and honestly, I've gotten more sales. Like, I did not expect that to happen. I didn't expect that by upping the price, I would actually sell more. And I think it's because people value it more. And so I was actually shocked that I sold as many as I did when I upped the price. And now I'm like, I'm never going back down. Like, I feel like I'm probably going to move it up again. Maybe I'll go to 50. But it's like, I think it's up to the value of the person, right? If somebody looks at that price and they're like, I'm not paying $40, that's their prerogative. But the next person's going to be like, oh my gosh, that's a steal. So it's like, you can't put the price of what you offer in somebody else's head. Yeah. It's what you think. And again, it is like, obviously if I charge $200 for an hour-long class, like, I don't think that would be okay, because it's like, I just don't think that anyone would pay for that. So you kind of do have to go based off of, all right, how many people bought it? If you want more people, yes, you probably could charge a little bit less and get more. But for me, I want quality people that are willing to pay, right? So it's like, it's all about like your goals and just figuring out. So for me, I still want it to be affordable. That was always my goal. Like one of my goals in general is like, I want people to be able to afford it. And I will just spend more time trying to get more people so that the money comes in more. So it's like, I'll spend the time marketing it. I'll keep it at this somewhat affordable price and hopefully get as many people as I can. Because if you think about it, video is freaking expensive. So like, if you can learn how to do it yourself, you save a ton of money. So it's like, you're actually saving money by paying $40. That's kind of what I say in my head, so it's like figuring out, like, you have to justify in your head the mindset. And that is something I have had to overcome over the years, is like, you're actually doing someone a service by having this, thing that you're offering. And it's like, the money is just part of it, So it's like, it's all about mindset. And I definitely have had struggles. So I'm not going to say I'm like, oh yeah. Because like the next person might charge 100 for so I'm still trying to figure out my own value.
Wow. I really love the fact that you have been able to literally give us a timeline or a stretch of pricing, because now it makes a lot of sense, because I've done it in a way that, and I didn't even use Facebook or any funneling. I did that later. But I, first of all, when I wanted to do these workshops or these webinars, I first started using Eventbrite. And on Eventbrite, you, especially if you know your keyword strategy, you can get the right tags and the right audiences, because that's like free search pretty much. But I've never charged. The only thing I charged for was a fashion show, which didn't happen because of COVID, but that's going to come back again soon. But the actual courses that I wanted to teach specifically, I got like almost 20 signups, but I did not charge any of them. But I realized, one, when they sign up and they don't get my emails, it goes to spam, I've lost a connection. That's a big bounce rate. But now if they've paid for it, they're gonna look for me and they'll be like, where can I find this guy to let him know that I signed up? So when you think about the mindset and how you're putting it out there, is this something that should be practiced or tested through, especially when you can prove your concept? Or is this something that just literally takes its own form whenever you're ready to start a course?
So I do it differently than maybe some people, but what I've done is I built my audience first, and then I provide them the resources. So instead of using the resources as a lead gen, I'm only sending it to my audience. So it's like, yes, some people can find it, but it's going to be on my website. So it's like, if people are looking for it, and again, it's only available for a month. I only promote it about a month out. And so for me, I have my email list, I have my Instagram followers, I have my Facebook group, and that's where I share it, and that's where majority of my signups come from. Some of them, I haven't had their email yet, so that's great once I get their email. And because I'm not using Eventbrite, it just goes into my CRM system. So I already have their email. I know with Eventbrite, you have to they basically are like, please don't put all these emails in your system. But what I do when I was using Eventbrite, because I also used Eventbrite up until a couple months ago, I'd used it for years. It's a great system, but you also have to pay additional, fees and stuff. But I think with me, what I've learned is that I value the individual leads more than just getting the numbers, right? Because it's like, if one person's willing to pay, they're probably more willing to be a potential future customer. So I'm really focused more quality versus quantity in that situation. And so for me, I have recently switched to this great software called A.G.E funnels, which I'm obsessed with. It's definitely not cheap, but it's super valuable because it has my email marketing, it has my sales funnels, it has my classes, it has everything that I need. It has websites, it has my CRM, every single thing that I've used. I got rid of like 3 different softwares because I'm now using this one. So it's like, for me, having it all in one place to be able to track people, tag them, start them on email funnels, like it's all like so helpful for me to be able to be like, all right, so I have this huge list, but maybe only 100 of the people are actually potential people that are interested. So it's like figuring out, okay, of those people, Like, so for your free class, you said you had 20 people sign up. How many actually come, right? Because if it's free, usually there's about a 50% drop-off rate.
Right.
Honestly. I've always seen that. And usually when it's paid, it's about a 25% drop-off rate. So basically, you'll get about 75% of the people that sign up, versus if it's free, it's only about 50. So it's like, I don't know. I've learned all this over the years, running all these events that I've done.
I love that percentage quality. And if you think about the conversion rate being at 30, you have a better margin when you're dealing with a 75% margin than dealing with a 50% margin. So it definitely adds a lot of value, because that's where the high tickets come in. That's where the private coaching comes in. And most people don't realize that those things actually help. But some people too, from Instagram, from the DM, you send them a link and there's a payment there and they don't want to pay because they don't know if it's valuable to them. So is it the free onboarding call that leads to the one-on-one paid strategy, or do you like still keep that resource platform as a model?
Yeah, so I usually start people with the free class, the free webinar. I call it a master class, and then I get their email. I have like a link to sign up for a free call. If they reach out to me and they're like, hey, I want to like learn more about your coaching, I do send them that free call. And I recently took a class called Proposal Secrets. And what I loved about it was they say, always start with a free call, have it be about 15 minutes. And that, because you're right, no one's going to sign up with a stranger and pay them off the bat.
Right.
I do have, like, I've taken that option off my website because I'm like, I still list the pricing of, I do like a 2-hour business intensive, which is like the first thing that you'll do with me. And then from there, I'll do a custom coaching package is kind of how I do it. Because I think what I've learned from that class is like, everyone has a different need. Everyone has a different amount of time it will take for them to get to whatever their goals are. So having specific packages doesn't always work. It's a little bit too cut and dry. And I think that sometimes people need less time, some people need more. So having kind of a standard one package to kind of get people started is what I have learned and I'm now doing. But then I also have an option where if they just want me for an hour, that's another option. Is just if they want me, like for example, today I actually have someone who signed up for an hour just for me to teach them Final Cut for an hour. So
wow.
Like people pay, so it's like people pay to just do more of a tutorial, which I'm totally fine with doing because I love teaching tech as well. So I think for me, what I've learned is that, there was a while where I was considering taking off the free call, but what I realized is that they convert so much better than just listing your coaching on your website, which I just don't think works very much, especially these days when there's so much competition and there's, so it's like, I actually had a call with someone scheduled and then she had called and she had talked to another Instagram person or something before. And she messaged me and she's like, hey, like I really vibed with this person. So I'm going to go with them. And I hadn't even talked to her yet. So it's like, that was how competitive it can be sometimes, is like, if they're looking for a specific thing. For me, what's nice is I'm one of the only people in my area that does what I do, so I don't have a lot of competition. But when it comes to the greater internet, yes, I obviously do. There's a lot of other people that do marketing coaching. But when it comes to my local area, I feel like I've made it so that I'm the person people go to. Like I've really spent years building up my local audience so that it's like people trust me and know my name. And that's kind of been really helpful for me over the years.
Now, tell me more about that, because I'm really interested to know. We all have different coaches, especially on Clubhouse. Everybody's everywhere. And sometimes people gravitate more to people who are within their city. So when you think about the time you've spent online organically and from a local perspective, what have you taken into consideration that has helped you gain this status that now you're the number one go-to person in your city?
I think the thing about, so I live in Minneapolis, which is, we're in the Midwest, which is kind of delayed when it comes to just trends. There are a lot of small towns here, and I just think that there's a lot of people that are just not tech savvy. There's a lot of people that just haven't gotten into the world of online marketing. And so for me, what I've really put out is like, everything was local themed. People in Minnesota are very, they love Minnesota. So like every time I posted about that, people would then maybe start following me on my Instagram, and then I would start promoting. It would be basically a huge sales funnel to me. And that's how I've always run my business, is I'm going to talk about local stuff, but let's actually talk about small businesses locally too. So it's kind of like a slide into, now I have this new sort of offshoot called Collective Social Media, which is mostly I would say most people that follow that are local, but now I'm available to anyone. But you're right. And the past year has been hard because I haven't been able to see anyone locally. And so I have been kind of expanding out beyond my local community because I'm like, I can go on Zoom. I can do all these things I wasn't able to before. But I think the core of what my brand will always be is my local community. And there's a lot of need. I mean, obviously there's really not a lot of competition for myself. So being able to be, I think finding a niche where there's not a lot of competition is your best bet. So like for you, Pinterest, I think is a good niche because I don't think there's that many Pinterest people. So it's like and then maybe in your local area, maybe there's none, so it's like figuring out like if somebody locally, so for you, like once COVID is really over, I think you should start doing local Pinterest workshops that you can actually have people come to and then charge for them. Honestly, I think that's what you should do because you might have done some research seeing if there's other Pinterest people, but maybe they're not doing workshops, maybe they're a Pinterest manager, but they're not actually teaching Pinterest. So It's like, I think finding where you become in your area, the local Pinterest expert, I think is going to really benefit you because then once everyone knows who you are, they start referring you. Or that, like for me, I know people in my community that do certain things. There's this one woman who is a lawyer, and she's a lawyer for creatives. So anytime someone's like, do you know a lawyer? I send people to her because I'm like, she gets small businesses, she gets creative people, she gets it. And like not a lot of lawyers do. And she has an Instagram and she is like up to date on everything. So it's like figuring out your niche and then your specialty within and then your location. I think it's really important because like I got a speaking gig earlier this year in like a super, super, super small town in northern Minnesota because people had heard of me on LinkedIn. And so like people, like it was again word of mouth, but because people knew me as local, they hired me versus an expert from California, right? So it's like, I think it's like figuring out networking. I mean, networking is huge. The Clubhouse is great for that. LinkedIn is great for that. I think it's just like getting your name out there, posting content that shows your face. I was at Target last week. It's literally just happened. I was at Target last week. I was putting on my mask to go into the store, and this woman just stares at me really weird. And then I was like, why is she looking at me? And then I get a message on LinkedIn the next day. And it was somebody I had been connected with on LinkedIn, and she's like, was that you at Target? So like people recognize you from LinkedIn because I post videos on there all the time. So it's like, and then we ended up having coffee because we found out we lived in the same area of town. So it's like, I think that there is so much to building your personal brand in a way that you become that go-to person. And I think that that is the biggest way to make a difference in your small business.
Wow, that's a mic drop right there. You definitely hit the nail on the head because now it makes total sense when you are being practical with what you preach and what you're actually teaching to people, because sometimes you may be all over the place because everybody's doing something, you want to join the trend, and yet you can become the trend everybody's following. But people don't want to be that because there's this imposter syndrome. There's this thing of, I don't know if people like me. I need to get my makeup done. I need to look right. I haven't gone to the gym. Like so many excuses fall in, and you forget that the people don't even care about that. They care about what you say.
I mean, for me, like I've learned that you're right, the whole thing, it's like there's times where I'm like, yes, I need to look nice, but at the same time I think COVID has allowed us to be like, hey, I'm at home. Like we're all at home, we're all like in pajamas probably most days. I don't know, like I just feel like, I think I just did headshots recently, and what I kept saying was, I was like, I don't want to wear like a blazer or something super nice because that's not what I wear. I want to wear something that I actually wear every day so that it's more authentic. And I just think that sometimes when you see people wearing suits in like headshots, I'm like, do you actually wear that? Like, you probably just wore it for that photo.
Right.
So it's like, I'm all about casual, like, I mean, I'm literally wearing like a jean jacket. Like, this is just like what I wear every day. It's professional. It's not like I'm wearing like, I don't know, like a crop top or something. But like, I think like being able to be yourself and yet, being professional, but being more you, I think, especially on like stories and all these different platforms where people just want to hear from you. They want to see your face. I mean, yesterday I posted on my Instagram about, I just got an air fryer, And like I got multiple messages being like, oh, can you tell us more about that? It's like, that's not my good business, but I'm like, oh, people are interested in something that's happening in my life.
Right.
So like, I think you're building that almost like a friendship with people, you know?
Exactly. And I feel like when people feel like they're actually appreciated and you can connect with them, it's so much better. Which is why even in this workshop, I want to do less of keynote presentation and more of connecting. And because it's also within the club, I want people to actually connect with each other and have 5 minutes to say, hey, this is my name, this is what I do, this is my Pinterest account, and I'm glad to meet you guys. So if I'm thinking about them connecting, you never know what they're gonna do tomorrow. And like, because I was in this room, I was able to meet this person because it was hosted by this person. So those are the stories as a brand you'd want to hear, rather than, oh yeah, I made $1 million in 2 days. Like, everybody likes to hear those stories, but realistically speaking, nobody cares, you know, really.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that too is people are seeing through the sales. Like, I feel like sales works differently than it used to, and I think people that are stuck in the old ways are not doing well. They don't know why. And I think it's because people are pickier about who they give their money to. I think people are bombarded, like I mentioned, with ads, and I think when they feel that connection, when they, you know, there's a whole, I don't know if you've read anything by Donald Miller, the whole building a story brand concept, which is, you know, be the guide, not the hero. You're like, there's a guy in Minnesota who, if anyone in Minnesota is listening to this podcast, who basically is on every single billboard, and he's a realtor. And he has his arms stretched out like he's Jesus. And like, that's the posters of him. And like, everyone knows who he is because it's on every single billboard. And I'm like, but I don't know anyone who's actually used him as a realtor. He's just become kind of like, everyone knows who he is. So it's like the branding works, but he's in a positive way, right? Because it's like, or is it just annoying at this point? Like,
right.
You just see him everywhere. So it's like, yes, there is the point of like, there is brand awareness, but whether it's a good thing or not, I don't know. Like, it does it. I'm sure he'd probably get sales from it. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to keep affording these billboards. But at the same time, people my age or younger, we look to social media. We look to the people that we know. We know, you know, it's like, I was just reading this whole thing yesterday about overwhelm when it comes to choices. Like, we are overwhelmed with the amount of choices, and sometimes it's easier to just pick something or pick a person and then them telling you what to do and you go with that. Because there's too many things, right? There's too many social media platforms. There's too many accounts to follow. It's like you're so overwhelmed. And I think that leads to burnout. That leads to mental issues. Like, I feel like for me, I have ADHD, so my brain's constantly going everywhere. So for me to be able to like focus and like pick something and even niche down has been really helpful, to be like, I'm a social media person in Minnesota. That's like it's my circle. And I think that for a lot of people, they don't realize how many choices they have, like, can be overwhelming and too much.
Exactly. And even before we go into the amazing conversation of Notion, which I definitely wanted to get into.
Yes.
I would say this for packages. Is it better to offer like 3-tier packages, just like people have pricing on their softwares online? Or is it to have that one thing that they'll choose? Because sometimes people say, oh, I can't afford this, but I can afford this. And it's like a premium plan kind of thing. So how do you play that role when it comes to packaging your pricing?
Well, so that's kind of what I mentioned about having the one business intensive and then kind of customizing it. So it's like, once they're in, so I'll give you an example. So I have a friend, I actually work for him, sort of, I do his marketing, and he does audiobook recordings and editings. So it's kind of a niche because like not everyone has an audiobook, but the people that do need audiobooks, like it has to, like Audible has very, very specific requirements when it comes to how the sound is edited, how the audio is edited. It's different than podcasting. Podcasting, it can sound like anything, but when you work with like Audible, it has to be a certain level of sound. It has to be a certain caliber of sound. So what he does is he does that, but he can't price out an audiobook until he does a demo session. And so what he does is he charges the same price for the demo section, and then from that he's able to have a custom proposal based off of how long they believe it'll take to record and edit, because it depends on the speed of the reader, the length of the book, how much, so it's like all of these factors. He couldn't just have a set price, because some books he'd make a lot and some he'd lose a lot, right? So it's like, for him, what he's learned is that every single thing is custom. So sometimes it does make sense to do more custom stuff if it's a bigger project, because here's the thing, there's no one size fits all. So I think if there's a set amount of hours, and yes, like say you have a 10-hour package, then that's fine, post that. But I do think that some people are going to be like price shopping or something, so it's like all about the value versus the actual cost. I think that's the other thing too, is like, I know some people who talk about value-based pricing versus hourly pricing, where they price the project and not how many hours it takes and the price per hour. I'm not, again, an expert on this, but there are so many different ways, and I wish there were more books and resources on pricing, because I think it is by far one of the hardest things about running a business is pricing, because you just have to sometimes like guess and be like, all right, I'm gonna put this price out, see if there's any bites. I do think that there is like more math to it and like figuring that stuff out, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert, and it's still something I am working on. So I know that there are lots of different ways to do it, but I think, again, like what I mentioned before, too many options can sometimes limit people. And I think by having too many like a la carte stuff can be like, oh my God, do I need that? Should I have that? I think you're supposed to be the expert. So you're telling the person they need versus them like, all right, I think I want that. I think I want that too. I don't know. Maybe I'll go to somebody else for this. Like, I just think like sometimes it almost like ruins the experience for the client.
Yeah. And you've just given me an amazing idea whereby I can be able to, and this is what I've been doing, but now it makes more sense, where you're able to give the client all those three options, but at the end have a PS or have a recommendation and say that, hey, this is what we have, but this is what you need, because what you need is different from what somebody else would need. So it kind of makes them realize, oh, okay, I see why they're saying I need this. So it cuts out the other two without them thinking about the price and not thinking about what I'm actually getting back.
Yes, because people like custom stuff. They like thinking that you did this for them versus just being like, oh, this is what we have for everyone, So it's like, I think that's the thing, is like people want to feel like they're special. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I think that being able to have everything listed is really important too. So like having your website like you obviously know this with SEO, like having all the copy if they want it. But again, you don't want to overwhelm people. I think that's the thing I've learned over time, is I can be an overwhelming person. Like as a person, people sometimes are like, oh my gosh, you're a lot. But that's just my personality, and it's also my ADHD. But like, I'm like, cool, not everyone loves overwhelming people. Sometimes people just like quiet people that don't say much. I'm not that person, and you might not vibe with me, and that's okay. And I think that that's something that, but the people that I do find that like my energy, that's who I'm going to hang out with,
Exactly. I love that, because that actually weeds out the people that you don't want to work with, and it gives you less time to focus on those people that are actually stressing you out. Because there's this notion that says that, speaking of notion, that that the people who pay less as far as clients literally stress you out more than the people who actually pay you more. I don't know why that's true.
No, it's true. And that's why you never give family discounts, right? Never give friends and family discounts. I learned that filming weddings, because I don't know if I should say this, but I filmed a wedding for a family member. I'll just say that. And I didn't even really get a thank you. I didn't get paid. Like this is when I was first starting my wedding video. I didn't get a thank you.
Wow.
Like I spent the full day with them recording, never heard from them after I posted it. Like, I just feel like they valued it so much less because they didn't pay for it. And so I learned that like, if people pay more, like they have a higher expectation, and if you hit that, they're like, great, So it's like, I think, again, it all comes down to mindset around like what your value is. And I think if you undervalue yourself, other people will too.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's a great point you mentioned. I love the transition on why people should think about themselves first and what they're offering before they actually get into people's wallets or even people's minds to actually ask them for things that you never know. I may need it, you may need it, but until we get there is when we're going to find out. And I think that's where most people don't really take that time to practice that patience. So it makes a lot of sense. I would say this too. Notion, I've been using this since we last spoke, and it's changed my life completely. And at the same time, I'm still confused. If that makes sense.
Don't worry, because I was too, and I had to watch a lot of videos. So I mean, maybe after this call I can show you a few things. But like, I mean, what I love is I've tried for years to find the best project management system. I've learned that my brain, you know, the ADHD, I've learned my brain works differently than most people. One of the things I love to do is I just love to have lists of things, archives. I love to just have all of the things that I know in one place. And that's why I love Notion, is it's not just like a task-oriented thing, which I think most of them are. ClickUp is more task-oriented. It's not really so much like an archive. Like, I struggled with like just having a lot of content on ClickUp that wasn't like just task-based. And that's what I like about Notion, is it's a both task-based and archive, and basically it's a Wikipedia for yourself is what most people call it. They call it like a wiki for yourself. So if you had to build a Wikipedia of your life, that's what Notion can be for. And so basically, I guess, I don't know if I should describe it. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically it's like a blank slot that has a ton of different options. You can build tables, calendars, Kanban boards. You can also do anything from notes. Each individual thing then becomes its own page. So you can add drop downs, you can add table of contents, you can add, you can embed things like Google Drive documents, YouTube videos, PDFs. So you can kind of build like a database for yourself of your own content. I use it also to plan content for my social media. I use it to plan content for my academy. I also use it in my day-to-day with my meal planning, with my outfit guide. So I've taken pictures of all the clothes that I've worn, so I can track that. I have, I started doing a brand asset of my office. So I have all the different products in my office just on this board, so I can like see all the things that I own. So if I ever wanted to move, I'm like, okay, I know all the things I have. So for me, I like to be able to just have everything in one place. That allows me to be able to organize my thoughts. And for example, one of the things I'm doing right now is every time I read a book, that's where my book notes go. And I have a folder just for books. So if I'm reading a book, I like add all the different chapters and add any quotes that I like or any notes. So, because here's the thing, I read a book and I forget everything, right?
Right.
I don't write it down. If I don't highlight, I'm literally, there's a book called You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. It's a great book. I read it like 2 or 3 years ago, and I realized I don't remember a single thing about it. I know I liked it. I know it had a lot of great tips, but I'm like, I couldn't tell you a single thing she said.
Wow.
So I'm like, I'm going to probably reread it and take notes this time, because it's such a good book that I'm like, once I write it down, right, you remember what you write. So It's like, for me, having notes, looking at them, being able to organize my life on this platform has been super helpful. So I'm curious what you've set up so far for yours.
For me, it's been amazing. The platform has been really good, because one of the things I'm actually doing with it is, it's amazing that we're talking about Notion now, that I literally divided it. I use it for my clients. I've been able to really like do a task management process, see exactly what it's going to be doing for my business and how it's going to apply to my social learning, and how I'm able to apply this back to the system where I'm actually connecting from. And it's been good. I even ended up taking my time. I think I spent about an hour and a half just creating another complete board that I can be able to have the wedding list and just do wedding plans. And it's,
oh yeah, perfect.
And
yeah.
It's really good. I love the emojis, how it just like humanizes everything. And I don't know, I've not gone too far, but I'm a techie guy, so I know when I go deep, it will be really like rabbit hole time.
Oh yeah, and I think I sent you some videos and some stuff.
Yeah.
But I think those are helpful for me, because you're right. I remember I was scared to use Notion because I was overwhelmed by it. It has so many features, but once you get them down, once you kind of master it, it's like second nature, right? It's like, okay, right now I'm going to make a table, I'm going to put it here. I think it's a very creative platform too, because you can kind of move things around. You can, be like, what else can I do on here? It's very much for the creatives as well as more of the tech people.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's kind of a great platform for both. And I see a lot of students using it on YouTube for like taking notes for class. So like there's a lot of different, uses for it. But for me, I use it more for business and personal. I use it for content planning. I use it for, like you mentioned with your clients, I now have, every time I have a new client, I create a page for them. I embed their Zoom call from Google Drive that I upload. And then I also add any notes from our session, and then I send it to them. You can send individual pages to people. So that's what I've started doing. I've also started, looking back at my old clients and listing those out. Because one thing I've realized is I've never listed out all the different types of clients I've had. And because I have had so many, so I'm like, all right, I need to kind of go through and be like, all right, I've had photographers, I've had, wedding planners, I've had chiropractor, so it's like I need to start making a list of all the different types of clients I have. So if somebody comes to me, they could look at a list and be like, oh wow, she's worked with a lot of different types of businesses, including my type. So it's like I think being able to audit yourself and kind of go through your old stuff and just one thing I've also added is I have a brand asset guide, so I have all of my brand colors on a folder. So if I've ever what color is mine, I have my little hex code, so it's everything. Sorry, I'm getting all nerdy, but there's so many things you can do with it. So if you're looking for a project management system, Notion is my favorite. I've tried them all. This one fits my brain the best. I've used Airtable, I've used ClickUp, I've used Trello, I've used Asana. I've used them all, and this is the one that as of now, is my favorite.
Oh yeah, I would definitely say Notion is number 1 too for me, because even the way they have their platform is so different. And something I noticed, I don't know if you've noticed too, but when I downloaded the app and then I get the update from Clubhouse, for example, they ask me if I want to open the show notes on Notion. So it already
I've never done that before.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, so I was like, maybe they use Notion too as an embedded API.
Well, actually, they don't have an API yet. It's currently in private beta. So their API is launching this spring. And so when that happens, I'm so excited because all of these apps are now going to be integrated with Notion. And so I'm super excited. So I can't wait for that to happen. They're currently in beta. So I'm not sure if you somehow got signed up for the beta, maybe because you just signed up for Notion recently. I'm not sure.
I don't know. How'd you get into the beta program?
I applied. I don't know. I think they're just putting developers in it right now. But yeah, if you just search Notion private beta, you can apply to join the waitlist. And I think what they're going to do is they're just going to open the API to everyone. I don't do APIs, but I'm excited for the apps that I do use to be able to build an API for their app to be able to be used in, I would love for there to be a Zoom Notion link, I'd love for there to be a Gmail Notion link, so every time I get a Gmail, it would go into Notion, I could move it into the different you know what I'm saying? So
right.
I feel there could be a lot of potential with all the other platforms that I use. I wish there was more links between Notion and Instagram, or whatever. So it's figuring out how Notion can work, or Canva, so I just there's so many potential for it, and I do think it's growing in popularity. I do think I've seen more content also because I am paying attention to it now, but I do think that it is growing in terms of number of users in the last year.
Okay, definitely. I think most people don't even know about it. I got to learn it from you.
I know, and I only saw it on YouTube because there's this one YouTuber that I follow who kept talking about it, and I'm like, what is this? And so I'm now a evangelist of it. So I've definitely been telling a lot of people about it and that's actually my next thing is I'm going to be making YouTube content around Notion. I've done a couple of videos already, but my goal is to have Notion be a part of a lot of my content. Because what I'm realizing, you're right, people are like, what is Notion? And I'm like, oh, there's so much to say. How do I make content around that? It's also very hard to do podcasts around Notion because it's such a visual platform that it's very hard to explain. So that is one thing I've learned is this has to be a YouTube thing, or it has to be and Reels is too short to explain in 30 seconds, or TikTok. I have to do YouTube. It's just it's the best platform for it. So I think once you have really, really figured it out, that's another thing you could do as a topic for how you use it with Pinterest or what, so there's all these things that you can use it for.
Exactly. And I think also what I may be able to do is integrate that to the courses that I practice with and give people as Pinterest marketing or even branding, and then use Notion to help them also create that design and content strategy so that they can actually see what I'm doing.
You can give them a free template.
Right. Exactly.
Because you can make templates. You can sell templates. I bought a template on Etsy for $5.
Oh,
Because I was like, yeah, so like it's another way that you can actually make money is if you make a really, really nice template. I bought it because I just wanted to see what it was like to buy a template. That was honestly the reason I bought it. I was like, oh, like you can buy Notion templates. Let's see how that goes. And I did. It was a good template, but I'm like, I definitely need to figure this out because sometimes people give theirs away for free and sometimes again charge for it. So it's like figuring out like, okay, I need to figure this out for myself. Is it better to give them the template and then, they have to sign up for an email in order to get it, right? That's what a lot of people do is they have you sign up for their email list and then they'll send you the template.
right.
Or is it better to sell it? Or is it better to just give it away for free on my YouTube? Like, I think there's so many different ways to go about it. And I think it's like, for me, I'm still in the newbie phase of it. I've only been using it for less than 2 months. So for me, I'm still learning everything. And I think I'll become a master of it pretty quickly because I use it a lot. But it's like figuring out, okay, well, I need to make it look aesthetically nice in order to do a template. So it's like all these things are still learning in that process.
Exactly. Okay. I'm definitely looking out for that. And I'm excited to see how Notion works. I can't wait to see your videos on YouTube because if I'm writing blogs about it, I'll definitely use your blogs as backlinks to make sure that,
I love that.
Yeah.
I just recorded one last weekend. It was like a 25-minute walkthrough of my entire Notion, which is so funny because like already since then I've changed it. So it's like nothing stays the same forever. But yeah, it took me a while to edit that one. But yeah, so that's available on my YouTube channel right now. So.
Okay, most definitely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know people are trying to figure out, okay, how do I get a hold of Jenna now? Like, where do I see her? Where do I find her? Are you able to let us know where people can be able to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can go to my Instagram at Jenna Redfield. It's probably the best way. I also have I have like multiple websites. If you go to collectivesocialmedia.com, that also has information about my coaching. I have a podcast that comes out every week called the Collective Marketing Podcast, and Faber was on it last week, or I guess this past week. I don't know when this is coming out. And then that is just marketing information, marketing interviews, marketing content. I also have an academy, so collectivemarketingacademy.com. That's probably the main places. Also, I'm on TikTok, so if you like TikTok, I try to post on there every other day, maybe. It's kind of TikTok is an interesting platform.
It is.
I can get into that too, but it's just I like it a lot, but it's like there's times where you can do really well, and then there's times where like you're just not getting many views. So it's like figuring out, okay, well, what do people want? That's a whole other thing. Figuring out content ideas it's a whole platform that you have to figure out.
Exactly. Wow. Thank you so much, Jenna. I really appreciate you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anytime. I'll definitely catch you soon on the other side of Clubhouse.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.